Hello students, welcome back to the online class. In the last video, we have discussed on the landmark in cell study, postulates of cell theory, unicellular and multicellular organisms. Today we will proceed to the next part of the chapter, that is, what is a cell made up of? And under this we will cover up plasma membrane and cell wall. So, first of all, let us see what is a cell. Can anyone define what a cell is? Actually, a cell is a tiny mass of protoplasm which is surrounded by a membrane and is capable of performing all the functions of life. Right? Okay. And a typical cell has how many parts? 3 parts, okay? They are the plasma membrane, nucleus and cytoplasm. Actually, these are the functional regions of the cell, with cytoplasm possessing metabolic machinery, nucleus for its control and plasma membrane for its separation from the environment. And apart from this, there is an additional covering called cell wall that you will find in plant cells, fungi and many bacteria, but not in animal cells. Okay. Now let us see in detail about plasma membrane, the cell membrane. Actually, it is the outermost elastic membranous covering of the cell that separates its contents from its external environment. So, what is plasma membrane made up of? Actually, it is made up of organic molecules called lipid and protein. What? Lipids and protein. And you can see the picture of the cell membrane here. Actually, we can observe the structure of the plasma membrane only under an electron microscope. Right? And another important question. Why is membrane called a selectively permeable membrane? Okay. Actually, the cell membrane or the plasma membrane allows or permits the entry and exit of some materials in and out of the cell. It also prevents movement of some other materials. That's why it is known as selectively permeable membrane. Okay. And how does the movement of these substances takes place into the cell? How do the substances move out of the cell? These are some questions. So let us see. Some substances like carbon dioxide or oxygen can move across the cell membrane by a process called diffusion. Okay. And diffusion is the process of or the spontaneous movement of a substance from a region of high concentration to a region where its concentration is low. Right? Now, something similar to this also happens in cell. For example, like carbon dioxide accumulates in high concentration inside the cell. In the cell external environment, the concentration of carbon dioxide is low as compared to that inside the cell. Understand? So as soon as there is a difference in the concentration of carbon dioxide inside and outside a cell, carbon dioxide moves out of the cell from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration outside the cell by the process of diffusion. Okay. So similarly, oxygen enters the cell by the process of diffusion when the level of concentration of oxygen inside the cell decreases. Thus, diffusion plays an important role in gases exchange between the cells as well as the cell and its external environment. Right. So, water also obeys the law of diffusion. The movement of water molecules through such a selectively permeable membrane is known as osmosis. So you can say osmosis as the passage of water from a region of high concentration through a semi-permeable membrane to a region of low water concentration. Understand? Okay. Now, What will happen if we put an animal cell or a plant cell into a solution of sugar or salt and water? Three things could happen. So we are going to discuss all the three things one by one. So let us discuss the first picture. As you can see, if the medium has exactly the same water concentration as the cell, there will be no net movement of water across the membrane. No net movement. Such a solution is known as isotonic solution. Iso means same and equal concentration of the solute and the solvent. So what happens here? Water crosses the cell membrane in both the direction, no doubt, but the amount going is in the same as the amount going out, means amount going in and amount going out will be the same. So there is no overall movement of water and the cell will stay the same size. So there will be no change in the size of the cell. Okay, let us come to the second diagram. If the medium has a lower concentration of water than the cell, meaning that it is a very concentrated solution, the cell will lose water by osmosis. Such a solution is known as hypertonic solution. So here water crosses the cell membrane in both the direction, but this time more water leaves the cell than enters it. Therefore, what will happen to the cell? The cell will shrink. The size of the cell will be smaller. Okay. Now the third one. The third diagram, let's see. If the medium surrounding the cell has a higher water concentration than the cell, that means the outside solution is very dilute. Okay. Such a solution is known as hypotonic solution. Hypo means less. Okay. And here water molecules are free to pass across the cell membrane in both the direction, but more water will come into the cell than will leave. So the net result is that water enters the cell. When the water enters the cell is likely to swell up. This you can see in the picture. The first one is in isotonic, second is in hypertonic, and the third one is in hypotonic solution. And you can see the size of the cell here also in the picture. So you can conclude that osmosis is a special case of diffusion through a selectively permeable membrane. Okay. Now let us see some examples. Unicellular freshwater organism and most plant cells tend to gain water through osmosis. Absorption of water by plant roots is also an example of osmosis. I know you know the example of osmosis now. Some examples. Now, the flexibility of the cell membrane, okay, also enables the cell to engulf in food and other materials from its external environment. See, the flexibility of the cell cell membrane allow the cell to take in food. Okay, and such processes are known as endocytosis, and you can see in case of amoeba acquiring the food by the process of endocytosis. Right. Now the cell wall. Plant cells, in addition to the plasma membrane, have another rigid covering called the cell wall. Okay, and the cell wall lies outside the plasma membrane. That is, the outermost covering is the cell wall. Okay, and the plant cell is mainly composed of what? Cellulose. And cellulose is a complex substance and provides structural strength to plants. Okay, moving on to the functions of cell wall. So we will discuss in detail one by one. The first point is cell wall provides the shape of the cell. Second, it provides mechanical strength to plants. The third is cell wall protects the cell against pathogen and mechanical injury. The fourth one is cell wall prevents the growth of the cell. Now, very important, plant cells can withstand a lot of variation in the surrounding medium as compared to animal cells. How? Actually, cell wall prevents bursting of cell on endosmosis. How it happens, let us see. As water enters the living cell, the protoplasm swells up and builds a pressure against the cell wall. The cell wall also exerts an equal and opposite pressure against swelling protoplasm. As a result, after some endosmosis, further entry of the wall into the cell is stopped. So in this way, plant cells can. And when the living plant cell loses water through osmosis, there is shrinkage or contraction of the content of the cell away from the cell wall. Right? And this phenomenon is known as plasmolysis. And you can see that only living cells, not dead cells, are able to absorb water by osmosis. And here comes the end of the video. I hope you have understood clearly and hoping to meet you again in my next video. Thank you and have a good day ahead. Bye bye.